Hello there. Quick moment before we start. There is a podcast called Diary of a CEO, and the host, Stephen Bartlett, does this super smooth, incredibly charming, British accented request for people to subscribe to his podcast. And I feel it's pretty effective. Well, I don't have his accent yet, but I thought maybe if I tried it just for a second, more of you might actually hit the subscribe button. So here it goes. Hello, friends. Would you be so kind as to tap the subscribe button? It helps the show ever so much. Cheers. Okay, well, that was something. I think I sound more like Julie Andrews. But hey, if the accent doesn't do it, maybe this will. Most people who listen to this show aren't subscribed, and subscribing really does help us grow. Reach more people and make sure you never miss an episode that we work so hard on. It's free, it takes only 1 second, and apparently even my questionable British accent won't stop me from asking. All right, enough of the begging. Let's get to the good stuff. Artificial intelligence is here, and it's here to stay. And depending on who you ask, it's either going to replace us or make us better. What if AI isn't the end of meaningful work, but the beginning of a whole new level of creativity? In this episode of Best Friends at Work, we sit down with Jason Theodor, and what he shared might shift how you think about AI. Not as a replacement for humans, but as a tool that actually demands more of it. And according to Jason, we just might be in the dawn of a new age.
I think that there's going to be, and this is not Pollyannish, and this is not just like tech optimism or toxic positivity, but I think there's going to be a renaissance in what people can create. Because today I coded my first application that I just talked to Claude Code, and I said, I need to create an application that turns my Elgato monitor on and off, because otherwise I have to go and reach behind and pull out the USB cord, and there's no thing that lets me do it. It doesn't have a power switch. And so I don't know how to code. What do people need to do to not become obsolete? They need to become obsessed with something that interests them, and then follow that thread and become really go deep on something that they love and explore it and play with AI tools and see what they can do. Don't just dismiss them. Don't just consider them as being, I don't know. There's a million reasons not to engage in AI, I suppose. But I think that they are incredible tools. It's kind of like saying, I'm never going to it's used to create bombs, or it's also used to create buildings and cutlery, and it's a commodity, it's a resource. Like it's the accumulation of almost all human knowledge and creativity. And yes, it's biased, and yes, it's messy, and yes, it's imperfect, and yes, it hallucinates, and it does really weird stuff, and yes, it's hitting us through these weird lenses where they're mega corporations and that we can't trust, and we don't know what they're doing with their data. But there's all sorts of different ways to play with it, to understand that it's not going away, and it's going to allow us to do things that we never thought were possible. And to me, as a creative person, that's extraordinarily exciting.
This conversation with Jason is one of those that's going to make you stop and think about your work, your creativity, and what it really means to stay relevant. If you've been wondering how to navigate AI without losing what makes you, you're going to love this episode. Stay tuned for some positivity infusion a la AI. I'm Lauren Mask. Please join me and my best friends at work, Naomi Lippin and Mel Boyd Brown, where we invite experts to talk about work, life, and leadership and how to do them better.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, how are you
Ooh.
guys?
Well, thank you. I'm very
Good.
well.
So Mel, I
Yeah.
put a note out there. I have high winds for recording purposes today. I might end up getting kicked off, but please continue if that happens with the internet. We all know of how that can affect things, but um we'll keep our fingers crossed
For
Um,
sure.
for sure.
okay. Sorry, I'm back to back, so I haven't been checking. I'm just seeing I haven't checked any messages or anything. Sorry.
Well, are you like not ignoring us? What?
I'm not ignoring you. Just
Dare you be busy and not make us the center of your universe?
this was a busy Friday.
Oh,
Um,
well, it's good to be busy, right? There are alternatives, I should say. I was
I-
listening to a podcast with Kristen Bell, and
oh yeah.
they're eating hot sauce wings with hot sauce, and I can't remember the name of the guy, the podcast. Oh, I'm wishing I could remember. I'll put it in the description for our viewers so they could check it out. But she's so lovely. I didn't realize how lovely she was. I also had no idea that she was the what's her name on Frozen, like one of the sisters,
Oh,
not
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
Elsa one, but the other sister with the dark hair. But anyway, I had no idea. Um, I anyway, she said that one of the things that she's changed about how she kind of goes around is like instead of saying I have to go do this or I have to go do that, and she kind of used a kid like I have to take my kid to the orthodontist. Instead, she's kind of using the phrase I get to, right? I get
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
do this. I
Mhm.
get to do that and really taking in some gratitude of, things that may seem like chores, but we're lucky to be able to get to do
Mhm.
them, right? In some
Mhm.
ways. So,
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
used to when my
Mhm.
kids were little and they're like, get to school. And I'm like, there are kids in other countries that can't go to school and that's all they want to do. So you better appreciate it.
I'm gonna give you
I'm not
forced
sure. Yeah.
gratitude.
I'm not sure that works,
I'm
Lauren.
not sure that that was
Yeah.
the way it was
It
intended.
at all.
No, I don't think so. But I will tell you, I don't know if it was I didn't see it on a podcast, but I remember that maybe it was on Instagram or something, seeing something either repeating that or something very much like that. And I've actually started to do it. So I've started to say, I have the privilege to, because in fact, it is a privilege. Yeah, I have to take my kid to the dentist. Bleh. You're like, well, your kid's alive. You get to do that, right? So I have
Yeah.
started to do that, and it does shift. It does shift your energy, and it
Hmm.
does make doing things, all those kinds of tasks, easier, lighter.
Hmm.
Yeah, I agree with you, Naomi. So I'm trying to when I start to kind of, the heart starts
Hmm.
pounding a little bit more and I'm going, I need to do this, I need this, I need to do this. And I'm like, okay, I get to do this, I get to do this, I get to do this, I get to do this. What do I want to do first?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Instead of what do I have to do first, right? And it
Yeah.
it really does make things lighter.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at right now, just and you made me think of that, Mel, with your busy Friday.
Well, I
Yeah.
love that. I love that invitation for us to, like, that's an invitation for us to reframe. And I think this is more like a North American culture commentary. And I think and there's an
Find
opportunity
Education Forest in your Apple Music library.
sorry,
It
my
asks you to
My
play a
watch,
repeat
I pressed on
station
it and it just
for
started
your music in
repeating.
a
I have no,
There's
I
such a
was
thing
like,
about Apple Music. I'm
why
like,
is
I'm gonna
Apple
play some
Music
music.
looking for like North American culture on my phone? I'm taking my watch off and I'm putting it beside it so that I don't lean on it. What I was going to say is that I think also there's this balance of, making sure that we're paying attention to the signals of when something's hard as well. And we're not just moving to go to the reframe of, I should feel this, I should feel grateful, because there's also information in when it feels uncomfortable,
Oh,
when,
totally.
yeah, so it's,
Yes,
yeah, so sort of that
totally.
balance.
No,
Right.
totally. I
Yeah.
think the capacity to sit with discomfort is really important, right? It's really important because why? Because learning happens when we're uncomfortable,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right?
Feels like a perfect segue into our guest.
Yes, and let us
Like,
do
speaking of
that.
uncomfortable,
Way
not
to
that
go,
he is.
Naomi. That
He's
was so well
amazing.
set
Not,
up.
not that he's uncomfortable, but his topic is uncomfortable for a lot of people. And I have to say, I've known both of you for quite a while. And one of the things I've always known about Naomi, and I'm gonna call you out a little bit, is her non-love of technology is not a secret. When we were working together all the time, she's like, just but you have, to me, so embraced the
Yes.
topic of today, which of course our listeners know what it is because of the title, but is that AI world. And I'm so impressed how much learning you're doing around that, Naomi, and all the stuff that you've been sharing with me and with Mel, and kind of pulling me into it a little bit. I'm less into it, but I am into it, but I'm not. I don't know. So I'm excited about today's guest because I'm a little overwhelmed by it, frankly. So I'm curious to
Hmm.
see what he's going to have to say about it. So,
Yeah,
Mel, tell us.
let's let him in. Or Mel, are you going to introduce him before we
Yeah,
let him
I'm
in?
going to introduce him.
Okay,
And
cool.
I'm so excited to introduce him because I have known him for several years now. I had the privilege of coaching him back when he was doing a career transition about 6 or 7 years ago now. I might be slightly off on that, but a while ago. And we got introduced by a mutual friend, someone we both had worked with who had become a friend. And when this friend was introducing me to Jason, they said, "Oh, you're gonna love talking to him. He's interesting and he's dynamic and he's introspective and he's a really original thinker." And he was like, I adored watching how his brain works and how he unpacks things. And so I'm really excited for him to come here and talk to us and for people to listen to him. So
Hmm.
his name is Jason Theodore. He
Before you
runs.
introduce him, I have to agree with you, Mel, because I literally only had a very short time to do like a little producer prep before we got here. And I wanted to just start picking his brain so quick, and I resisted everything. So I'm excited to have him here. So you're right, he is very dynamic. So I'm
He's
excited.
really dynamic, really original thinker.
And
I
nice.
consider him a deep thinker. I, I may not always agree or be on the same page, but we have really interesting conversations that push my thinking, which is, I think, one of the reasons why I really enjoy chatting with him. So his background is creative. So he spent over 2 decades as a creative director for Nike, for GM, at Microsoft in the agency world. So agencies like Ogilvy, McCain, Publicis. And then he went and went and co-founded or founded actually a company called Too Clever by Half. And its purpose is to help organizations use AI to empower people, not to replace them. And his focus is really about understanding how does AI work and how does it change work? Not just what it enhances for us, but also like what it's costing us and how can we use it better. And so one of the things that I think is really interesting about Jason is he's not afraid to talk about the things that feel uncomfortable. Speaking of discomfort, right? He thinks that we should talk about discomfort and we should talk about uncomfortable truths around AI. Things like that when we're careless with AI, we're actually thinking we're being more productive, but downstream we're killing productivity, right? That we focus on, thinking about how we can process knowledge, but we do it without intention, right? So sometimes we're using it to actually replace deep thinking, which is what we don't want to do. And that if you're trying to get going really fast, but you don't have a strategy, then you're just going to get someplace that you don't want to get faster, which is what you don't want. And he has this
Right.
brilliant, I think we all loved when we were looking at his website, his philosophy is human first, AI second, right? Like that's
Right.
awesome. And
Hmm.
so really excited to have him join us. The work he does really is about helping teams and leaders accelerate AI capabilities without eliminating their judgment, without eliminating their expertise and their experience.
Hmm.
I'm excited for him. I'm excited. Can you tell I'm excited? I'm excited.
I can tell you're
Yes.
excited.
Yeah, I'm
And you
excited.
look like
Okay.
it's a if, maybe, maybe. All right, should we let him in?
Yeah,
Yes,
let's totally
please.
let him
Let's
in.
do it. Let's do it. He's coming. I promise. He's coming. I promise.
Yeah.
Yay, he's
Hi,
here.
Jason.
Hi,
Hey,
Jason.
Jason.
Hi, nice to meet you, Naomi.
Nice
And
to meet you too.
great to like meet you again and see what you look like, Jason. Last time we spoke, it was on the phone, and your
That's
hair
right.
is not as crazy as you said it would be.
Okay, I don't have to fire my AI makeup and hair people. That's good.
Good thing he's gonna check.
Jason, I'm so excited to see you and to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on.
It's my
Hmm.
pleasure. This will be fun.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it is. So we're gonna start dive right in with the question.
Yeah.
And the question was like, can we start at the beginning? Like, let's start at the beginning of your story. Like how, like you and I met 6 years ago now. And you were at that time already starting. Like I remember in our conversations, you were already starting to think about AI and how it worked. Can you catch everyone else and me up to how we got here?
Sure. Now, I don't know how far back you want me to go, but um, I'll try to make it brief and interesting. There are some long stretches where it's not super fascinating, but um, I started way back. I decided that I was going to study English and philosophy. And then I don't know, at some point I got disillusioned with the idea that at university I was just uh, regurgitating and saying what the professor wanted to hear. And even though I don't know, you get to a point sometimes in the thing that you're passionate about where you're like, maybe what I enjoyed about it wasn't breaking it down and analyzing it into a billion little parts. Um, but that being said, I had this thing throughout all of university where I had a Macintosh computer and I was always making little flyers and making album covers and just weird zines and things for people. And I wanted to know why my stuff didn't look as good as the stuff that I admired that was out there in the public. And so I switched courses and decided to go into graphic design. And then I studied that for 3-year program at Conestoga College in Kitchener. And here's the crazy thing is that the first year, so I've been using a computer, I've been using a Macintosh since 1984 when I was a kid, like doing my assignments for school. Like, this is what a soccer field looks like, drawing it pixel by pixel. Um,
Wow.
we weren't
That's a good
allowed to
time.
use a computer for the entire first year of graphic design. We had to do everything by hand, and it was an education for me. Like I tried to drop out. It was very, very difficult work. And please feel free to interrupt me and interject at any moment. But that led me to design, and design led me to advertising and marketing. And I got my first job as an art director working at McCann in Toronto, which is a big ad agency, and doing like banner ads for General Motors. Like that's how I started. And then what interested me and what fascinated me was, well, that was right when the web was beginning.
Mhm.
So the internet was a big thing, and I was creating design at the cusp of this new wave of digital material that was coming out, right? For
Mhm.
good or for bad. No one misses banner ads, I don't think, although I think they still exist. Um, but I don't think there are a lot of people designing them anymore. But anyway, I was interested in the process. I was very interested in the creative process and the application of the creative process and how different combinations create different outputs and different results, like matching an art director with a copywriter and then giving them a brief that's very restrictive that has to meet these criteria. And all of that was fascinating to me. So I started collecting and studying ideas around creativity. And then at around 2006, I started speaking about creativity at conferences and things like that. And, and I really got into it. I started writing about it. I started a book. Anyway, as things went on, I became a creative director, and then we went into things transformed from just being the the general web to everyone having a website to all of a sudden brands wanted to be people and people wanted to be brands and we
Mm.
got social media came into the mix. And so things just kept evolving and changing and shifting, which was very exciting for me. And then at one point, everything switched to applications. And so I went from being a creative director to being an experienced design director. I was my last big job. I was hired as an executive to build a design team that would do product design and customer research and all of that stuff for a big financial consultancy in Toronto. And then we had this little thing called I forget what it was called, the before times, as there was some virus or something. And then our company got laid off and our company got acquired and all the executives were eventually laid off, which included myself. And I was like, what do I do now? And so I studied AI. I got really into learning how is this new technology, which was pretty nascent at the time. There was like this thing called GPT Playground where you could go in and you could mess around. It was before Chat GPT, but you could use something called, I don't know what it was, GPT-2 or whatever, and you could, or Jasper even, there was a thing, and you could get it to create basic copy and basic writing. And it was interesting because you could see like, oh, it gives me these sort of crappy headlines. And my first experiment was that I thought was hilarious was, can it do humor? And so I would use this little GPT Playground tool, and every day I would get up and I would ask it to write me a very funny six-panel comic about, and then I'd pick like a huge theme, like about friendship or about sadness or whatever. And it would write the comic, and it would be weird stuff, like just super weird. And I then used another tool called Midjourney, which had just started becoming popular, which was a text to image program that would allow you to type in, I would type in a description of the first frame of the six-panel comic that I wanted, and then I eventually would compile it. So I'd take the writing from GPT and I would take the illustrations from Midjourney, and I ended up making a comic book called Funny Not Funny. And I don't know, I made about 50 or 60 comics over 50 or 60 days. And it was like a fun experiment just to see what can this what can this technology actually do? And the reason that it's called Funny Not Funny is because it's not very good, right? It's like you look at it and it's entertaining in that it's trying so hard and yet not coming close to meeting the mark, right? And going from that experience in 2022 and really trying to get the most out of these tools to 2026, the difference is kind of staggering. Like the things that I do now are way, way different. Anyway, hopefully that gives you like I don't know, a long-winded overview of my career and
It
interests.
I was
sounds like
so I was so interested as you said that. Like you started off in philosophy and
Yeah,
English, right? And we think about philosophy as like part of that is about thinking,
yeah,
right? And how we think. And then you're really into the creative pieces, and then it's the application. Like what do we do with it? And then into AI. And so many times when we talk about AI right now, there's a criticism that people are using it to replace thinking.
yeah,
And
yeah.
how do you think we should be using AI?
Well, I don't want to get prescriptive because I think
Fair.
that that's like saying how should you be creative, but there are traps. And there are traps when you're being creative, there are traps when you're using technology. And for me, I think the easiest way to describe it is and I use the word already, but it's don't push the easy button.
Mm,
It's average in, average out when it comes to AI because it's taking the median of all human knowledge and experience and it's just flattened. And so if you're not playing at the edges, if you're not really, really using your vocabulary and your intent and your experience and
Mhm.
your
Mhm.
like every vocabulary or every profession has a vocabulary that where you can go pretty deep into the specifics of what you want. Um, all of that, your life experience and your worldview, your interests, your passions, and your intent need to be channeled into the technology if you want it to have outputs that are going to be of any interest to anyone else. So you can do things that are, fun for yourself, like turn me into a Disney princess character, right? And boom, like you've got a picture profile that looks like it was created by Pixar. Well, that's cool for you, but it's boring to almost everyone
Mhm.
else that you showed to
Mhm.
because they've already done it themselves.
Mhm. Mhm.
I
Yeah,
love
what you're saying reminds me of what I think it's not an original thought, but AI is a mirror of us, right? So just what you said, what you put in to AI, how you prompt it, what you ask for is a mirror for yourself, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So, and as human beings, the way that as AI continues to evolve and emerge, it's going to give us, if you're interested in that sort of thinking, it's going to give us information about who we are as human beings.
Yes, there's a wonderful. Oh, sorry. Go ahead,
No, go,
Lauren.
Jason.
I was just going to say there's a philosophy professor from Edinburgh um, who named Shannon Valor, who's written a book called The AI Mirror, and it's a fascinating look at how exactly what you said, Naomi, like the fact that it's a reflection of us. It's a reflection of
Mm,
all of our biases and experiences, but it's also a reflection of what was. It's the past aggregated. It's not what's going to come. It's not actually the future. And that's a massive limitation. But the idea of the mirror is like in Shannon Valor's book, the AI mirror, the mirror is about the myth of Narcissus and about, this beautiful man looking into a pond and seeing himself falling in love with something that doesn't really exist. It's not really real. It can't love him back. And so he dies starving, waiting for this ethereal idea that he has about love, about himself to actually manifest, and it doesn't happen. So and I think maybe he turns into a flower or something interesting. But um the idea that we are using AI and AI only knows what's come before is an interesting philosophical idea.
mm.
Whatever,
Do you, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Lauren, because you haven't asked anything yet. So please go ahead.
it's okay. We all take
Hmm.
turns, but rock, paper, scissors, and shoot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so I might end up taking us into a different direction. So my apologies, Naomi. If you
Sure.
want to backtrack, please do. What I'm hearing, listening to you, Jason, listening to Mel and her thoughts and Naomi as well, is really making me think. I used to work at a university. And one of the things that I had noticed here, at least in the United States, probably happening in Canada as well, is that many universities are pulling back on humanities, pulling back on, philosophy, that's STEM, STEM, STEM. It's, pushing the science. And what I'm wondering is, are we going to start seeing a new trend back towards humanities? Because I feel like those that are really doing kind of an interesting thing with AI are people who know how to write and people who know how to write really good prompts because that's what's going to trip you up. There are people designing the
Yeah.
AI, and that's where, the math and the calculus and the trigonometry and all that definitely come into play and all that computer science. But there's the other side of that where if garbage in, garbage out, right? So you need to make it, beautiful in, beautiful out in some ways. So I'm just kind of curious I'm there's no question here. I think I'm just like spouting
Well,
off about the idea of, and I get excited about that idea too, because I think I've lamented the backslide of the humanities and backslide of people studying history and you know whatever. I mean, I don't know. I'm just that's just a
well,
thought that popped into my head.
there's something about there's a few things that come to mind. One is like I think that AI, the use of generative AI requires whole brain thinking. So not just your left brain, not just your right brain, but the entirety of it. You need to think both logically and um, illogically or emotionally, or you need to think creatively, you need to think linearly, you need to think all kinds of different ways. And when I say need, I mean it just when you can shift gears and jump tracks, when you're not getting exactly what it is that you're looking for out of the output, it helps to be able to try a bunch of different things. But at the same time, what's interesting is that the AI itself can help you with that. So,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. In fact, that leads me to the question I was going to ask you, which is, um, so I'm going to say, this is my perspective. I think AI is a different kind of intelligence. I do think that it is its own kind of intelligence, and now it's part of our ecosystem. I'm curious what your perspective is.
Well, I think that it is a fascinating study in being human. Like it's an algorithm, it's a predictive algorithm that has looked at everything just about that anybody has ever written down, spoken, and also, I mean, now it's not just large language models anymore. They're taking in sound, they're taking in visuals, they're taking in video, they're taking in all the data that we could possibly create. Um, and it's predictive in the sense that it thinks that it knows based on what it's seen, what should or could come next. And that can shift and alter and change, and you can adjust parameters on that. Um, but what's fascinating to me is that it can hold, it's a different kind of intelligence. You're right, because we're just not used to being able to hold that much vast amount of
Hmm.
information in our
Hmm.
minds
Hmm.
to be able to either focus it or consolidate it or find patterns. Like we are really, really good pattern recognition uh, machines or animals. Like our brains are very, very good at it, but AI is vastly, vastly better. And but it doesn't have life experience to be able to filter
Hmm.
it through, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
find that it is like for me now, the way that I use it day to day, like for example, before this podcast, I thought, okay, well, how should I best prepare, for speaking to you about what I do? So I took about I don't know 3 or 4 of my latest presentations and lectures, and I uploaded them into Notebook LM, which is created by Google, and I gave it to to the large language model, and I said, create me a half-hour podcast that just talks about all of the main highlighted aphorisms and little weird things that I have to say, and then I went for a run and I listened to this half-hour podcast of these two people talking about my work, and it was crazy. Like it was the weirdest. It's such a almost out of body experience to be like, okay, so now there's this two artificial, characters talking about the things that I do, and I can listen and I'm thinking, oh, they got that right, they got that wrong, but it's engaging my mind while I'm pumping it full of oxygen from from running. And then I'm actually being able to engage with my own content in a way that I've never been able to experience before. Right? It's
Hmm.
just it's a strange new world around um, the way that we think and work about anything really. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
expect that that's what, I don't expect the average person is going to go about doing that. And maybe the average person doesn't have a bunch of stuff that they've actually written and want to explore. But that's not to say that you couldn't use Notebook LM to say, I want to know more about like the ancient the fall of the Roman Empire, and have it collect books and data and information and make you a podcast that's like specific to some, like maybe you're just interested in aquifers or whatever, and it'll just make that thing, and then you can
Mm-hmm.
learn about it. And then of course
Mm-hmm.
double check that it's actually accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's that
I,
part, right?
Yeah. So
when you
I
were, oh, sorry, Naomi, can I just ask a question building off
absolutely go
what
right
Jason
ahead.
just shared? First of all, there's a probably that desperately wants to listen to the podcast of the two AIs talking about your ideas. And what it made me think about is I was listening to a podcast, I guess a week or so ago from and Naomi and Lauren for sure will know this people from Neuro Leadership Institute, David Rock, and they were talking about an AI tool that they have developed called Niles, and the idea of the tool is that you would use it to help think about your own thinking and to
Yeah.
notice patterns in your own thinking. And what I thought was interesting about the parallel to what you just described is that, y- one way that this could be really useful is that it helps us expand how we understand and make sense of the world and how we see it, which feels really different than how oftentimes we tend to hear right now AI being talked about. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Yeah.
think there's a question there. I think more I'm looking for other people's reactions
Mm-hmm.
on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, uh, an interesting sort of piece of data is there's a woman that I follow, and her name is Abby Awamosu. She's a woman involved in the AI world. She lives in the UK. She's has a I almost um, did a course with her. I stepped back, but she has written a couple of really interesting posts on LinkedIn from her perspective around AI, which is really human centered, right? Which, Jason, as I hear you speak, your perspective on AI is human centric, like humans first, right? And then
Yeah.
AI,
Yeah.
not AI and then humans. So
Yeah.
anyway, she says research shows that while that most, and you can speak to this too, Jason, because this is what you do, most in initiatives inside workplaces, inside companies around AI integration are not working, right? And that individuals are using AI, but when you look at sort of companies and processes, it's not being terribly effective yet. So her thing is that the predominant use for AI currently is personal development
Hmm.
and therapy and connection. And I know my daughter is using her AI as as a therapist right now because she doesn't have money to go to a therapist, and and it's being really helpful for her. So, I'm putting that out there. I'm curious what your perspective is. I know you work in companies.
Hmm.
Does that resonate for you?
Yes, and I think I've got two cute little aphorisms that I one is um, that you want to go from AI DIY to AI ROI, which is instead
Mhm.
of just everybody doing their own thing, you want to get it to be more structured so that you understand that everybody can benefit from it, and it raises all ships and all of that good stuff. Um, and the other one is SOP, not slop. So standard operating procedures. You want SOPs. You want to understand like you want to actually capture the specific steps of what it is that somebody does in their workflow in the day, and then understand, okay, where are there bottlenecks? Where can things be accelerated? Where are there parallel paths? Where do we need to have some human uh, interjection or judgment that needs to come into play? Like when do you need to have an approval for something before it goes to the next step, etc. And then you take that workflow and that standard operating procedure and you run it through AI to say, okay, where is the best opportunity here for us to begin to use AI to just start, um, whether you want to call that low-hanging fruit or whatever business jargon you want to throw in there, um, be my guest. But it's essentially saying, we don't want to just start by throwing AI at everything. We want to throw it at one little piece at a time, and then we want to understand and refine that specific uh, piece, and then make sure that it works, that it fits within the way that we work, the way we want to work, that it's creating the value that we want to see. Um, because guess what? It's our choice. Like we're the humans. We're the ones implementing this stuff. Um,
Mhm.
Now, when I say that, obviously there are people that have jobs where they're not empowered and they don't have a choice and things are imposed on them. But you know, I I think that in the areas where I work, which is generally what do they call? I don't know what they call it, like knowledge work or creative profession. Um, I think that it's, I'm not worried about jobs replacing, or I'm not worried about AI replacing people in those kinds of jobs. I'm more concerned about the value of the work that they create eroding and becoming meaningless. That's what I'm mostly worried about.
Mhm.
Tell
And
me
that's
more
where my
about that.
philosophy background comes.
What do you mean by their work becoming
Mhm.
meaningless? Tell me more.
So this idea of work slop is basically saying,
I love
um,
that word, by the way.
it's
Work
hilarious. I think
work slop.
MIT or Harvard Business Review came up with it in the summer. But it's like, so imagine that you've got a coworker that and you're expecting a report at a meeting, and the report is an analysis of, say, your competitors for a new product that you put out. And let's say that they put zero effort. They went to Google deep search and they said, give me a competitive analysis of this product. They hit go, it came back, it spat out a 20-page report or whatever, and it even turned it into a slideshow for them to watch. Um, and they didn't vet it. And then what happens is that the burden is pushed downstream. So now someone else needs to spend time and go through this report and read it. And it's going to, and what took this one person maybe 15 minutes takes the next person 2 or 3 hours, maybe half a day, maybe an entire day to go through it and make sure that it's compliant or make sure that it's true or factual. And what does that do? Well, that starts to erode the trust of the people that are using the AI because they're not taking responsibility. There's no standard operating procedure
Mhm.
for who's responsible for the product before it goes to the next step, and that can be a real
Mhm.
problem. Um, and then who's to say, like, how does that then differentiate you as a company, as a product, as a team when you're just deferring to one generic tool?
Well, it's
Mhm.
interesting, Jason, because you're just talking about like, a report of a competitor, et cetera, and so forth. Not that that's not important and that critical decisions can be made on something like that. So there's a TV show. I don't think you can get it in Canada yet. It's called The Pit. It's on HBO Max. And the reason I don't think you can get it in Canada yet, because my daughter who's going to school in Canada can't watch it. But if you get the chance, it's a great, great,
It's on
great show.
Crave. It's on
Yeah, it's
Crave.
on Crave. She just
Oh, it's
came.
on something
Yeah,
called Crave.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's a they're part of Bell and they own or they have the rights to
Right.
HBO.
Ah, I may have to like let
Yeah,
my daughter know
yeah.
about that because of course she's wants
It's
to go
only
medicine. But
20
they
bucks a
they
month.
have a it's the new season and there's a new character coming in who's a new physician and of course is doing the trendy I'm gonna use AI in medicine thing, right?
Okay,
So
yeah.
she's working with the patient and she holds her phone and the phone AI records the interaction and then it's supposed to go into charting and save all kinds of like hours of charting that doctors have to do. It's pretty famous out there that doctors spend way more time in front of computers than people, right? But as this AI thing is going into the charting system, it makes a mistake. And one of the first year residents calls it out and says, "But we didn't give her that medication. We gave her blah blah blah." And the doctor, who's all excited about this new stuff and wants everyone to use it, kind of goes, "Well, you definitely have to check the work."
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I thought, how is that going to save time? Like you still have to go through every fine point, especially when it comes to something like healthcare, airlines, where safety is like the
Yeah, yeah,
like someone's life is
yeah.
Mhm.
literally, I mean, to me, that's what makes people really afraid of AI in some ways.
Yeah.
You know the old saying, measure twice, cut once,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
you flip that with AI so that it's prompt once, proof twice. Because basically you have to double check everything.
Yeah. So that, that may change over time as
Hmm.
AI evolves. It may not.
Mhm.
But I want to go back to Jason, and that was an excellent point, Lauren. And what I'd like to go back to, Jason, is the situation that you were describing in that company. And I'm curious about this because what that made me think about is the company culture, right? So that whatever you're introducing into a company, it it hits the wall of the company culture. So if in a culture, because someone could, in this case, this individual had AI produce a report and didn't check it. Well, take AI out of that equation and say someone puts together a report, but they're not careful and they pull data from places that are not really true. So I think for me this gets to the importance of really understanding not like the internal dynamics, if you will, in an organization. um, because I think if you are doing any kind of project including AI, that's what it's going to run into.
And I'm used to working in an environment that is agile or iterative or whatever you want to call it, where you're building tools or applications and you're studying human behavior, you're understanding, you're trying to make incremental improvements constantly. And I think that in those kinds of atmospheres, AI can work really well with the culture, with the teams, and it can be a good fit. With other companies, it's harder to convince them that, innovation is the way to go when they're just aiming for efficiency.
Mm.
Um, right? And you can get a lot. It's very, very tempting to push for that efficiency with AI because of how fast it can go. But the problem is that
Mhm.
if you go, we all know, if you go really, really, really fast in the wrong direction, bad things can happen, right?
Right, right,
So,
right, right,
Yeah.
right. So, yeah, there's a difference between, and again, I've heard this, so it's not my original thought, between effective and efficient,
yeah,
right? So,
there's a
right,
difference between quantity and quality, and
right.
they both have their part. They both play a part
Mhm,
in
mhm,
that. I mean, I like to say that you've got uh, quantity, quality, and uniqueness, and the three Qs. So the Qs in the middle for uniqueness, just because it has to be different. But those are like the three ingredients that are necessary for something to be
mhm. I
to
like that.
be effective. Um, And uniqueness,
Mhm.
not necessarily for uniqueness sake, but maybe unique to a specific problem or unique to that that product or that company or that culture, whatever it is that differentiates it, because otherwise we just have homogenous slop, right? And that's the fear.
It makes me think as I'm listening to this conversation, to state the really obvious piece is that it's really important that we're intentional about what
Mm.
it is that we want to use the AI for and what the outcome is. And yet that seems really obvious, but we don't always do it.
Mhm.
That that's
Mhm.
a huge,
Mhm.
huge chunk of my
Mhm.
AI literacy course that I teach, which is how do you or how could you communicate better with AI? I have this little course called How to Talk to Robots. And
Hmm.
you know, the super nerds point out, well, they're not robots, they're they're large language models. I'm like, yeah, yeah, but that it's marketing. It's marketing, it's fine. But
Yeah. Yeah.
it's so it's so amazing for me to see the light go on in people's eyes where they're like, "Oh my gosh, I never thought of it that way. I never realized that I could approach it this way." And it's all about intention. It's all about pulling out, coaxing out what your intention actually is and helping you, even using the AI to help you to describe it in great detail so that you get more of what you want. Or maybe even realize that what you want wasn't actually what you need and then
Hmm.
changing it up.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of us
Yeah.
have put prompts into, an open AI you're like, what? Like, no, no, no. Wait, let me rephrase that because that's pretty
Yeah.
Yeah.
common. But you know
So,
what? But we have to do that with humans, right? How often do we
Oh,
talk
yeah.
to humans? And
Yeah.
right.
wait,
So,
I
right.
got to redo that.
So this is
Exactly.
all about communication, right? And there was
Yeah.
so I am in engaged in AI, not so much honestly in a technical way, but this kind of conceptual stuff is so fascinating to me. So this woman she's a prompt engineer, and one of the things that she said in a webinar I was watching, and I'm sure this is connected to what you just said, Jason, is that we need to understand that AI does not understand human communication the way we communicate. Because when we communicate, there's a lot of inferences,
Hmm.
right? There's a lot of emotional overtones and undertones. And AI, to your point, it,
It's a
it's
robot.
you need to learn how to communicate and not assume that if I'm speaking to my AI and my AI, one of them, by the way, has a name because I named her. Um,
And you
but
gave her a gender
um,
too.
I did. I listen. Claude, right? I use Claude and ChatGPT. ChatGPT is Luma, and Claude to me is a woman, so I she's a she to me. Um, so anyway, if I was talking to you, Mel,
Yeah.
talking to Luma, it's it's different. It's not the same.
Yeah.
Mm.
So we are like so running out of time and it's making me
We
insane
want
because
Jason to come back,
I
actually.
want to ask so many more questions. So the the one of the things that's really just, is the top of my mind, mostly because of working in organizational development and learning, working in leadership development, just working in learning for organizations, and the words development are always, always there. Um, people are really afraid of losing their jobs now. Or especially, I mean, you got to think about some of us who are Gen Xers are like, okay, we've got another like 10-ish years left in the workplace. Ooh, like what's going to happen? And then I'm thinking about, my children who are, college to age, and I'm not hearing them talk about AI at all and what's going to happen with their work as they graduate. So, what do people need to be doing right now to keep themselves from becoming obsolete? because that's the fear. I mean, I did some training for McCann, and one of their topics was around AI replacing advertising and marketing. So, and it's interesting that you've worked in that world as well. So how
So
do people work on that?
I'm going to show you something. Um, this is a book on typography that I just got as a present. It's called Alphabet in Motion. It's a beautiful, beautiful book by Kelly Anderson. Here's what's crazy about this book. There is a 0% chance in the next, I don't know, I don't want to make too crazy of a prediction, but my guess is that in the next 5 years, AI is not going to make this book because it is a pop-up book,
Oh, it's
right?
beautiful.
Every letter, I know I'm blocking the mic, but
It's
but
okay.
it is an absolute beautiful thing. So here you can see there's a place to put your phone, and then your phone goes through this thing that you can turn, and then that projects it onto this, and it shows you how um, I always pronounce it wrong, but moire patterns work in print, and it is absolutely stunning, stunning book. Um, I think I think that there's going to be, and this is not Pollyannish, and this is not just like tech optimism or toxic positivity, but I think there's going to be a renaissance in what people can create. Because today I coded my first application that I just talked to Claude Code, and I said, I need to create an application that turns my Elgato monitor on and off because otherwise I have to go and reach behind and pull out the USB cord, and there's no thing that lets me do it. It doesn't have a power switch, and so I don't know how to code. Um, what do people need to do to not become obsolete? They need to become obsessed with something that interests them and then follow that thread and become really, really go deep on something that they love and explore it and play and play and play with AI tools and see what they can do. Don't just dismiss them. Don't just consider them as being, I don't know. There's a million reasons not to engage in AI, I suppose. Um, but I think that they are incredible tools. It's kind of like saying I'm never going to use steel or metal because it's used to create bombs or it's also used to create buildings and cutlery and it's a it's a it's it's a commodity, it's a resource, like it's uh it's the accumulation of almost all human knowledge and creativity. And yes, it's biased, and yes, it's messy, and yes, it's imperfect, and yes, it hallucinates, and it does really weird stuff, and yes, it's hitting us through these weird lenses where they're mega corporations and that we can't trust, and we don't know what they're doing with their data. But there's all sorts of different ways to play with it to understand that it's not going away, and it's going to allow us to do things that we never thought were possible, never thought were possible. And to me, as a creative person, that's extraordinarily exciting. Like, just think about what you do and do more of it. There's going to be more room for handmade, physical, real world stuff. There's going to be a clamoring for that too. So if you really want to get into pottery and, screw AI, that's fine. But maybe AI will help you come up with a new kind of glaze or, a new way of thinking about, because you can say, these are all the things that I'm doing. Help me process this in a different way, and let's see what happens. So
What I
So
love
anyway,
Jay,
about that
you
is
can
it's
say.
sorry. What I love
No,
about
we
that
all
is
want to say something. We're all
I
excited.
know, I
it
just
felt
felt
like it felt like an invitation to see it as an input, not an output.
and also, Jason, because what you said is it is it's an accumulation of our entire existence, right? It also taps into ancestral intelligence, right? So it's not just now. If what you say is true, right, there is intelligence or ideas that our brains can't hold, but AI does. And we can pull those that knowledge here.
Mm.
One
One
of the things
quick,
that you,
go ahead, Lauren.
Jason, you're making me think of a really great TED talk by an artist named Phil Hansen, I think it is, and it's called Embrace the Shake. And I feel like AI is the shake that people have to embrace. His TED talk is about he did pointillism as an artist, but he caused nerve damage in his hand. He gave up art
Okay.
because he couldn't do it anymore. And the doctor was just like, "Why can't you do your art?" And he goes, "Well, my hand, it's all broken and it can't fix and it shakes." And he goes, "Well, why don't you embrace the shake?" And he went, so he created all, like he was able to bring himself into and create all new different art, but it was still his art. And the way he did it, it's a great TED talk. I'm spouting that off, but I think you would like it, Jason, because it's exactly what you just said. Like people, embrace something, they need to embrace something they're afraid of, I think, right?
We're the ones that wake up every morning with a desire. We're the ones who wake up with intention. Like the AI does not. Right? We're still the humans. We still have
Mhm.
choices. We also are the ones that can curate and decide on whether or not the output that we have needs to be shifted or changed or moved around. The fun thing with AI is that you can do that really quickly. Like I can do a month's worth of work in a couple of days, depending on what it is. And and to me, that acceleration of my own ideas or my own output is thrilling. It's thrilling.
Mm.
Mhm.
I love that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Well,
Mhm.
I, like Mel said, we may have to have a sequel on this
We need a
because
sequel.
we like just like AI, we're barely scratching the surface of your thoughts on this, and how workplaces can harness all this. So, Jason, we really appreciate having you here today,
This
Yeah,
is
thank you.
awesome.
Thank you.
and we sometimes we just never know what direction these conversations are going to go. But my hope is that, maybe we brought some optimism to to some folks around
Mhm.
this and
I hope so.
I
for
feel
Mhm.
sure.
optimistic.
I'm
Yeah.
feeling
I
No,
feel
optimistic.
hope.
I
I
think
feel hopeful.
absolutely. I think, Jason, your perspective on this and how you're using it is really constructive and positive, and you're really the last piece you said around, look, you may decide that you don't want to do AI at all, but whatever you want to do, just do it, right, with your full self, right? And that's just a really fabulous mindset to have, I think. So, and I just have to tell you, I love this. Less A, more I.
Yes. Yeah. Less A,
I
more I.
love that. Less A, more I.
There
So
were
clever,
It is clever, Naomi. I agree. I was looking on
clever.
the website. I'm like, well, that's interesting. Well, that's clever. Oh, I like that. People definitely need to check out your website. If for anything, it's some good reading.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Two.
Awesome. Awesome. Any last words, Mel?
Thank you. This was amazing.
Thank
Yeah.
Thank
you.
you. Thank
Ethan.
you
Thank you
all.
for sharing.
All
So much
right. Well,
fun.
have a good one, Jason. We'll see you later.
You bet.
Take care.
We needed like 4 more hours with him.
Well,
What?
we need to
We
have
always
him
have these
back.
amazing guests, but
We didn't really get it. The piece that we didn't have time for is what he kind of his thoughts about leaders who are considering bringing AI into their workplaces, and how might he, what what might he say to those
yeah.
individuals? And also, we this was very much on a conceptual level, which is fine. And I know he does courses, but it'd be be interesting also to explore the more ap applicable stuff that he does with
Yeah.
I
AI
agree.
and
Yeah.
with teams. That would be really interesting.
I feel like this was a great almost kind of setup in some ways, maybe for that conversation, because before we get into, practicalities in anything,
Hmm.
sometimes
Hmm.
we have to get over our fears, our thoughts, and kind of get to know the people who are kind of starting to lead the charge in learning, you know, about all of this. Because I find sometimes, is it going to save me time? Is it not going to save me time? And that's an important, I think, way to kind of think about things.
I agree. I think maybe there's a part two.
Yeah. I mean, there was so much that resonated with me about, you know, just, embracing, embracing something new and giving it a try and giving it a whirl and seeing what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And the agency piece really
Hmm. Yeah.
around it as
The
well.
last thing he said, I loved that because we see it. Or at least I see it playing out already, right? The the sort of emergence it's been a while, maybe I think maybe COVID actually really kind of brought it forward, people doing DIY stuff, right? And
Yeah.
making stuff, and the idea of community and local and connections, right? That so if you're someone who's more inclined to play or show up in that area, great. If you're someone who's more inclined to go down the coding, whatever, well, it's not really coding because you don't really need to be a coder anymore because you can really code yourself. We all can.
Hmm.
Um, that's where my technical comes in. Of
I know he
course.
mentioned that whole I put some code in so I could turn on a
Yeah,
microphone or turn off a microphone. I said, "What?" Like, wait a minute.
yeah.
Now
No,
you just went
you
way
really,
above
I
my
mean,
head.
you really can. But in any case, I think that he really his message was for everyone. His message really was basically do what you love.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a beautiful message.
All right. I think we're going to reach out to him for definite part two.
Absolutely.
All right. We'll have to find some time on the calendar real soon before we get too deep into anything else. As always, guys, thank you for coming on this
Thank
journey
you.
with me. Mel, thanks for bringing Jason. He was wonderful to meet.
Absolutely.
And yeah, gosh, guys, I love all this. Thank you for being a part of this.
Thank you.
One of
Stay
these days,
Thanks.
we're
safe
going to
in
think of
this
a really
weather.
clever, one of these days, we're going to think of a clever, like, end tagline of some sort that other than just goodbye.
Well, we
Bye,
look forward,
everybody.
Lauren, we look forward to that day. In the meantime, we'll
In the
say
meantime,
just
love,
bye.
goodbye. Thank you for listening to Best Friends at Work. Produced by Pierce Lane. The journey starts here. Music by Ryan McCaffrey.